What's going on, Port fans? Welcome back to another video on my channel, and today we're going to review our defensive lineup for 2018. We're going to go through each individual in our defense and see how they played in 2018 and how well as a collective the group went, what went right and what went wrong. So let's, without further ado, get straight into the review of our defense. In 2018, our defensive group built off of what was a stellar into 2017. Our whole defensive lineup as a collective really worked well throughout last year, and that form carried on into 2018, where we saw our group, well, our defensive as a team, went number 4 in the league for scores against as well. And as a collective, you know, players like Dougal Howard, Tom Jonas, Jared Lena in his first season in an AFL side, DBJ, Hamish Hartlett, unfortunately went down with injury so early, but his form in those 5 games that he was playing were just absolutely brilliant, and he was on his way to having a career best year. Dan Houston, Riley Bonner, Tom Cleary, Jack Trengove, in what games he did play, he was pretty good, so he definitely gets a tick for mine. I've just done a little bit of a category too with a question mark, and these players may or may not be on our list next year, and even may not even play on at another club depending on their form, but some of them might even stay as well. So those 5, I've got 5 here, so Jack Hompsch, Jasper Pittard, Matthew Broadbent, Trent McKenzie. That's actually 4, but you get my drift. So there's a few there that have a little bit of a question mark next to them, whether or not they have their side, have their spot set in the 22. It's such a big collective group of players that we have in our defence. A lot of defenders who are trying to prove a point, and we're going to have a couple more coming through as well that are youngsters, no doubt, whether we pick them up in the draft, we trade for them, or even they develop from another position who are already on the list. So what went right in 2018 for our defence? Well, quite a lot. I thought they were out of all the 3 key components on in position. So you've got defence, midfield, and forward. Out of those 3, our defence was the most consistent. They're the ones that worked really well together. They were so damn good under pressure, and they got us out of a lot of tough situations. No doubt the showdown, the first one. Brisbane, where we won by 3 points as well. Sydney, you know, there was patches in every game where we were under siege, and that back 6, whoever was there at the time, held off that pressure from the opposition, and they no doubt somehow turned it around, and our attacking style coming out of defence really worked well, and we ended up winning those games that we needed. Obviously, there was some that we didn't win, but I'll get to that a little bit later on. As I said before, the fourth team in the league for points against. We were, I think, 2nd or 1st last year, so it's a little bit of a drop-off. I think that's more to the fact that our scoring ability dropped significantly from last year up front, so that pressure of not being able to score and put the pressure on the opposition, that sort of turned it around, and eventually it hit back on our defensive group, and the damn walls just kept breaking in the end because of that, you know, sustainable pressure from the opposition. They kept bashing it in, and in the end we broke, and unfortunately it happened too many times. But it's not so much our defence. Yeah, I think that came down to more of a team defence factor, where, you know, our midfield and forward half wasn't really working together as a group with our defence to really solidify any sort of trouble that was coming from the opposition. And in the end, you know, as I said, the damn walls kept breaking, and the floodgates opened too many times. You know, games like West Coast, games like Adelaide later in the season, definitely against Collingwood in that last quarter. You know, Essendon early. You know, those. I'm not using the last 4 games as a, you know, as a point of view, but it happened, you know, other times in the year, like the games against Geelong in the last quarter. You know, games against Hawthorn, where we were 5 goals up at quarter time, and they ended up winning the game. We only scored 30-odd points for the rest of the game. So it's those types of things that probably need to be fixed a bit. But that's more of as a collective than just our defensive back 6. As I said, consistency was our big up for Port Adelaide in 2018. And when I say for Port Adelaide, it's for our defence. No doubt, even though we only averaged 80 per game, we averaged 70 against for most part of the year. Games where it was 50, even teams are scoring 60 points against us, and yeah, they might have got the win, but I think it's a big bonus for us to say, yeah, we got one component right. We just need to work on the other two. And a big hats off to Nathan Bassett for that honour. He's gone from being our forward coach to our defence coach, and wherever he goes, he seems to make it work. Last year, our forward line worked extremely well. We scored a lot of points, and our defence sort of didn't hold as much. But this year, our scoring power dried off, but we still were able to hold on to leads because of our defence, most notably against Richmond and Melbourne. No task was big enough for our defence. That was probably the key thing from this year. No task was big enough. Games against Sydney, where Buddy Franklin was playing. Games against teams like Richmond and teams like Melbourne, who are now playing prelim finals, and most may probably go up to a grand final and win it. Those types of games give you massive confidence. Yeah, games like Adelaide and West Coast and all those types of games where we seem to switch off happen. But the bigger positive, the bigger picture here is the fact that we could hold on against the good teams. Now, for the rest of the lot, midfield, forward, etc., if they can get to that standard, then this team does not become a mid-ranked average side, go up a notch. So it's, each to their own on that one, but I think our defence is the damn wall in the end. So what went wrong for Port Adelaide in 2018 in our defence? It's sort of a flip side of that. We were consistent, we were good, but as a group we couldn't sustain and keep it together in the big moments, and that's probably more of a team defence thing. As I said, I think our defensive game plan that we brought in sort of was too much. We couldn't find the balance between attack and defence. We went too defensive, almost like a Ross Lyon type. And, I felt that we got in the way of each other. And, when changes that happen so often to our backline, like too many changes to the lineup. Jack Comps comes in, Jonas goes out because he's injured, Cleary goes out because he's injured, and Leonard comes in. Leonard comes out, and then it's just a debacle. If we had consistency with players' names on paper, we might have more consistency with players' names getting the best out of themselves on the field rather than on a piece of paper. But there wasn't so much, there wasn't a lot that went wrong for our defensive group, I think, as a collective. As a team, yes, but if you're pinpointing exactly those types of players that had, much improved seasons, some career best years, Dan Houston, Dougal Howard, number one for 1%ers. As Houston before, he was so consistent this year. Riley Bonner got a Rising Star nomination. Tom Jonas in the 40-man All-Australian squad. A lot of upside for our defence. So that brings me to a little thing that I'm going to do at the end of, defence, midfield and attack, which will basically build up to the best 22 that I'll announce probably next year as we get, the recruits and stuff like that in, whoever we get, as well as the draft picks as well. But our back six at this stage, I think the best is Darcy Byrne-Jones, Tom Cleary, and Tom Jonas. Then Hamish Hartlett, Dougal Howard, and Dan Houston across the half-back line, the Triple H effect there. And Riley Bonner and Jared Leonard will start on the bench, so they'll rotate through and maybe even push onto a wing. Both can be used there really well. Bonner, if he can get his fitness up right and get a bit of consistency into his game, may even pan out really well. Jared Leonard, we know, is a utility, so he could even go forward at any stage as well. So a bit of flexibility on the bench there, but that back six is a massive tick for 2018. And hats off to our defence. No matter how much pressure they were put under, they stood together. And Koshy said it really well in roaming Brian at the end of the year. No one recognises them, but they are stars down there. So hats off to our defence on a stellar 2018 when it wasn't really much of a positive. As a collective, they did really well. Let me know in the comments below what you think about our defence in 2018. What can be improved? And who is anyone we can possibly bring in to change it up a bit? Thanks for tuning in, Port fans, on Spreaker as well. Really appreciate the support on there, and also the Portraits Podcast, 8 p.m. every fortnight now till the draft. We're just going to take a little bit of a step back and let all the news come in, and we'll discuss it later on. Thanks for watching, Port fans. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new for plenty more Port Adelaide content. It's been a pleasure, Port fans. As always, my name's Anthony, and can't the pair.